Good morning, my friends. We live in a world that demands we look outward. Titles, appearances, likes, validation. But real success, the kind that gives you peace at night and purpose in the morning, starts not outside but within. The greatest journey you'll ever take is not to a distant land. It's the journey into the depths of your own soul. That's the journey of self-discovery. Today, I will walk you through 7 key principles that will help you awaken to your truest self. Not your roles, not your resume, but who you really are. You can't change what you don't understand. And that's where the journey of self-discovery begins, with self-awareness. Most people live on autopilot. They wake up, go through the motions, perform their roles, and crash into bed, only to repeat it all over again the next day. But the truth is, until you pause and truly observe yourself, your choices, your reactions, and your patterns, you're not really living. You're just existing. Self-awareness is the foundation. It's the mirror we hold up to ourselves, not to judge, but to understand. And understanding is power. There's a story I often share about a young man named Daniel. Daniel was bright, full of potential, but also restless. He changed jobs frequently, not because he was lazy, but because something always felt off. He'd start a new role with excitement, only to feel stuck within months. It wasn't about the salary, the work environment, or even the people. Something deeper was unresolved. So I asked him to try something simple but uncomfortable. I told him to take an entire weekend, leave behind his devices, and just sit with a journal. Reflect on his week, his past decisions, his emotional triggers, what gave him energy and what drained it. No distractions, just a conversation with himself. At first, he resisted. He was used to filling silence with noise. But slowly, as he began to write, he uncovered truths that had been buried under years of business. He realized he had been chasing careers that impressed others, not himself. He was following a script written by someone else. His parents' society, the corporate ladder. For the first time, he confronted the question, what do I want? That was the moment his life began to change. Not because he had a grand plan, but because he finally started from his truth. We are all like that to some extent. We wear layers. We perform roles. We conform, often unconsciously, because we think that's what's expected. But the most successful, fulfilled people aren't necessarily the smartest or the most talented. They're the most aware. They understand what makes them tick. They know their values, their triggers, their boundaries, and their dreams. Not the ones they post about, but the ones they feel in their gut at 2 a.m. That kind of awareness doesn't come from scrolling through life. It comes from stopping. It comes from asking deeper questions. What energizes me? What depletes me? When did I last feel alive? When did I last feel lost? I want you to take a moment and think back to a time when you made a decision you later regretted. Maybe it was saying yes to something you didn't believe in, or staying silent when your heart screamed to speak up. What drove that decision? Was it fear, people-pleasing, insecurity? That's self-awareness in action, asking not just what happened, but why. Because when you understand the why, you can rewrite the pattern. You can choose differently next time. And let's be honest, becoming self-aware is not always pleasant. Sometimes you won't like what you see. You'll notice the lies you tell yourself, the compromises you make, the fears that control you. But that's okay. That's where transformation begins. You can't heal what you won't face. You can't grow from what you won't admit. But once you see it, you gain power. And that power, if used wisely, becomes the first step toward designing a life that's actually yours. So here's what I want you to do. Tonight, carve out 30 minutes. Just for you. No phone, no TV. Sit down with a pen and paper and ask yourself, what parts of my life feel forced? Where am I performing instead of living? Don't filter. Don't worry about grammar or being deep. Just be honest. That's where the gold lies. And don't stop there. Make this a weekly ritual. Self-awareness isn't a one-time event. It's a daily discipline. It's how you stay aligned with your purpose, even when the world tries to pull you in 1,000 directions. Remember this, you are not your job. You are not your failures. You are not your roles or responsibilities. You are a person with depth, desires, wounds, and wisdom. You are a work in progress. And the more you understand yourself, the more you can transform your life from the inside out. Don't wait for a crisis to wake you up. Wake up now. Look inward, because the journey of self-discovery begins not with action, but with awareness. And that awareness will become the compass that guides every step you take. There's a crucial difference between setting goals and living by values. Goals are what we want to achieve. Values are who we want to become. And too often, people set goals without first clarifying their values. It's like building a house without a foundation. Sure, you might build fast, you might build high. But one storm, one challenge, and it all comes crashing down. Because without values, goals lose their meaning. You can reach the top of a mountain and realize it's the wrong one. That's not success. That's regret disguised as achievement. I remember working with a high-performing executive named Laura. On paper, she had it all: title, salary, accolades. Her LinkedIn profile was a checklist of success. But when she came to me, she was exhausted, empty, and frustrated. She said, "I don't know why I'm so unhappy. I've done everything right." So we sat down and looked not at her career, but at her values. Through a simple values clarification exercise, she discovered that what mattered most to her was creativity, freedom, and meaningful contribution. Yet her job demanded strict structure, routine meetings, and endless profit-focused decisions that left little room for impact. She wasn't failing. She was misaligned. That was her turning point. When she realized her suffering wasn't a mystery but a message, everything changed. She didn't quit her job overnight, but she started carving out time for projects that allowed her creativity to shine. She volunteered on weekends to mentor young professionals. Slowly, she built a new path, one that honored her deepest values. And the moment she aligned her external life with her internal compass, the burnout faded. Not because the work became easier, but because it became authentic. Your values are not some fluffy list of nice-sounding words. They're the roots of your identity. When you live in alignment with them, you feel grounded, even when life is chaotic. But when you live in conflict with them, you feel confused, even if everything looks perfect on the outside. That internal conflict is not failure. It's feedback. It's your soul reminding you that success is not about doing more. It's about becoming more of who you are. Now, here's the problem. Most people never take the time to define their values. They inherit them from parents, religion, culture, or society. They assume what matters, money, status, popularity, is supposed to matter. And so they chase goals that aren't theirs. They sacrifice peace for approval, passion for security, purpose for performance. But no matter how far you run, the truth always catches up. And the truth is this: if your goals don't reflect your values, you'll always feel like something's missing. So I want to challenge you today. Take time to define your values. Not the ones you think you should have, but the ones that feel undeniably true. Maybe it's love. Maybe it's growth. Maybe it's justice, compassion, independence, or faith. Ask yourself, what principles would I stand by even if they cost me something? What do I want people to say about me when I'm not in the room? What qualities make me feel most alive? Once you've identified those core values, use them as a filter for your decisions. When faced with a choice, ask, does this align with who I truly am? Let your values drive your behavior, not just your goals. Because when your actions are rooted in your principles, even the hard days feel meaningful. Let me be clear. Living by your values doesn't mean your life becomes easy. It means it becomes aligned. You might still face resistance, doubt, and discomfort. But that discomfort will be purposeful. It won't drain you. It will refine you. Because you'll know deep down you're living your truth, not someone else's expectation. And here's the beautiful part. When you start living by your values, your goals become more powerful. Because they're no longer just about achievement. They're about expression. Your goals become extensions of your identity. not masks you wear to be accepted. And that's when the real magic happens. That's when your life starts to feel not just successful, but significant. So tonight, I want you to write down 5 core values that define who you are. Don't rush it. Don't copy anyone else's list. Sit with it. Reflect. Then ask yourself, how well am I honoring these values in my current life? Where am I out of alignment? What small shift can I make this week to live more fully in sync with who I truly am? Remember, values are not found. They are revealed. They've always been inside you, whispering through your instincts, your emotions, your moments of joy and discomfort. Your job is to listen. And once you hear them, to follow them. Boldly, unapologetically, consistently. Because when your life is rooted in your values, your path becomes clear. And that clarity is the foundation of a truly meaningful journey of self-discovery. One of the most liberating truths you'll ever accept is that you don't need to be perfect to be powerful. You don't need to have every skill, every trait, every talent. You need to be authentic. You need to understand who you are, strengths, flaws, quirks, and all, and show up as that version of yourself, not a diluted copy of someone else. Too many people spend their lives trying to fix what they think is broken in them. But what if what you think is broken is actually your hidden brilliance? What if your so-called flaws are the very things that make you irreplaceable? I once worked with a young man named Marcus. He was kind, loyal, intelligent, but painfully insecure. He kept comparing himself to others, especially in social settings. He wasn't loud, he wasn't flashy, he didn't dominate conversations. So he believed he wasn't a leader. But when I asked his teammates to describe him, they said things like, he makes people feel seen. He listens better than anyone I know, and I trust him. That's when it clicked. His quiet presence wasn't a weakness. It was a strength. He didn't need to become louder. He needed to become more confident in who he already was. So many people make this mistake. They look at someone else's gift, charisma, confidence, creativity, and think, I wish I were like that. But what they don't see is the cost of comparison. Every time you wish to be someone else, you rob the world of you. And let's be honest, no one is excellent at everything. Everyone has gaps. The difference between those who flourish and those who flounder isn't perfection. It's ownership. The best people know who they are, and they stop apologizing for who they're not. Let me give you a personal example. Early in my career, I was obsessed with trying to appear confident and charismatic on stage. I watched other speakers and tried to emulate their style, the way they moved, the way they joked, the way they told stories. But every time I did that, I felt off. My energy was forced. My connection with the audience was weak. It wasn't until I accepted my natural style, slower, reflective, principle-driven, that everything changed. I stopped trying to entertain and started trying to empower. And that's when people really started listening. You don't discover yourself by becoming more like others. You discover yourself by becoming more like yourself. That means owning your personality, your preferences, your passions, and yes, even your weaknesses. Because your weaknesses don't disqualify you. They humanize you. They make you relatable. They teach you humility and interdependence. And often they point you toward collaboration. You don't have to be everything when you surround yourself with the right people. Think of it like this, you're a puzzle piece. You don't need to be the whole picture. You just need to fit where you're meant to fit. And the way you fit is by being shaped exactly as you are. Trying to change your shape only disconnects you from your purpose. The world doesn't need more perfect people. It needs more real people. People who know their genius and use it. People who know their flaws and still lead. That's what builds trust. That's what creates depth. That's what fuels impact. But here's the key. You can't embrace your uniqueness if you don't know it. So how do you get there? You reflect. You experiment. You ask. Take personality assessments. Pay attention to feedback. Notice what energizes you and what drains you. Notice where you shine effortlessly and where you struggle endlessly. None of it is good or bad, it's just data. Data that helps you see yourself more clearly. And then you begin the second part of the journey, giving yourself permission. Permission to stop hiding. Permission to stop fixing what isn't broken. Permission to build a life around your strengths instead of your insecurities. That permission is radical. It goes against everything society tells you about fitting in. But it's the only way to stand out. And standing out, not for attention, but for authenticity, is the key to fulfillment. So here's what I want you to do. Write down 3 things you've always been told are weaknesses. Then ask yourself, what's the other side of this? Is it sensitivity? Or is it empathy? Is it stubbornness? Or is it resilience? Is it quietness? Or is it depth? Your so-called flaws often hide your greatest strengths. And once you flip the narrative, everything shifts. Remember, the goal is not to be perfect. The goal is to be whole, to live and lead from your center, to know your strengths so well that you stop chasing approval, and to accept your imperfections so completely that they no longer hold you hostage. You are not here to be everything. You are here to be something, fully unapologetically and uniquely you. Fear is not your enemy. It's your compass. It points toward the very areas where your growth, transformation, and fulfillment are waiting. But most people run from fear. They see it as something to avoid, something to silence, something that disqualifies them from moving forward. What they don't realize is that fear doesn't show up when you're doing something meaningless. It shows up when you're standing at the edge of something important. The bigger the fear, the more powerful the opportunity on the other side. Facing fear is not about becoming fearless. It's about becoming brave enough to act anyway. I remember meeting a woman named Priya at a leadership seminar. She was sharp, thoughtful, and full of incredible ideas. But she had one paralyzing fear: public speaking. The very thought of standing on stage made her palms sweat and her heart race. And yet her dream was to become a transformational coach. The contradiction was painful. She had the heart, the knowledge, and the experience, but fear was the gatekeeper. So I asked her one question: if fear wasn't in the picture, what would you do next? Without hesitation, she said, I'd start speaking at schools, empowering young women. That was the moment she realized fear wasn't the problem. It was the doorway. What she feared most was also what mattered most. That fear wasn't trying to stop her. It was trying to guide her. We live in a culture that treats fear like failure. But fear is just energy. It's your nervous system waking up, telling you, pay attention. Something meaningful is happening here. If you always run from that feeling, you stay small. You stay safe. But safety is a lie. There is no safety in a life unlived. There's just quiet regret. Think about it. What have you not done because of fear? What dream have you shelved? What relationship have you avoided? What conversation have you postponed? And how long will you let fear run the show? Some of the most successful people in the world are not fearless. They just have a different relationship with fear. They've learned to interpret it as a signal, not a stop sign. They feel the anxiety, the self-doubt, the resistance, and they move forward anyway. They understand that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the willingness to take one step forward in its presence. And every time they do, they expand their comfort zone. They gain confidence. They rewire their brain to understand that fear is survivable. There's a technique I use that I want to share with you. It's called the fear ladder. Think of your biggest fear, not the general one, but a specific scenario. Now break it down into 10 smaller steps. If your fear is public speaking, the top of the ladder is delivering a keynote speech. But the first rung might be speaking in a small meeting. The next might be volunteering to introduce someone. The third might be recording a short video on your phone. You climb one rung at a time. Each step feels scary but manageable. And with each step, you build proof that you're capable. When I first started speaking publicly, I was terrified. My voice would shake. My hands would tremble. But I kept showing up. I started small. I got feedback. I practiced. And eventually fear turned into fuel. Now, every time I feel that same nervous energy, I smile, because I know I'm about to step into something meaningful. That feeling doesn't hold me back anymore. It wakes me up. And it can do the same for you. So here's your challenge. Identify one fear that's been holding you back. Name it. Be specific. Then ask yourself, what's the smallest possible step I could take toward this fear today? Not tomorrow. Today, maybe it's sending an email, making a phone call, writing a paragraph, taking a class. Whatever it is, do it. Not because it will eliminate the fear, but because it will change your relationship with it. Fear loses power when you face it, and it gains power when you avoid it. The more you run from it, the larger it becomes. But the moment you look it in the eye and take action, it starts to shrink. You start to expand. That's the process of growth. That's the pathway to courage. Remember, the edge of fear is where your potential begins. Behind every fear is a version of you that's stronger, wiser, and more fully alive. But you have to earn that version. You have to fight for it. And the battle begins the moment you stop waiting to be ready and start moving forward anyway. Don't let fear write your story. Use it as ink to write a new chapter, one where you are not the victim, not the runner, but the warrior, the leader, the author. That's who you were born to be. In a world that's always loud, always busy, and always connected, intentional solitude is becoming a lost art. We've been conditioned to believe that productivity means constant activity, that stillness equals laziness, and that if we're not doing something visible, we're wasting time. But the truth is, the most important work you'll ever do happens in the quiet. Self-discovery doesn't happen in the noise of the world. It happens in the silence of the soul. If you never step away from the noise, you'll never hear your own voice. If you never sit still, you'll never notice how far off course you've drifted. Intentional solitude is not about escaping life. It's about re-engaging with it from a place of clarity. I remember a time in my own life when I was doing everything right by the world's standards. Meetings, travel, projects, speaking engagements. It looked successful, but I felt hollow. I was reacting more than reflecting. I was saying yes without asking why. I was moving fast, but I didn't know where I was going anymore. One morning, completely drained, I drove to a park and just sat in my car for almost an hour. No phone, no notebook, no plan, just silence. And in that space, something shifted. It wasn't dramatic, it was subtle. But I started hearing my own thoughts again. Not the loud, anxious ones. The quiet, honest ones underneath. That 1 hour changed everything. It reminded me who I was, not who I was performing to be. We are so used to input that we've forgotten how to process it. We consume information, conversations, distractions, but we rarely take the time to integrate. And when you don't integrate, you disconnect from your own center. You live at the surface of your life, chasing momentum but missing meaning. Solitude is how you dive beneath the surface. It's how you slow down enough to remember what matters. It's not about isolation. It's about presence. Presence with yourself. Presence with your thoughts. Presence with your heart. And make no mistake, intentional solitude is uncomfortable at first. We're not used to being alone with ourselves. The silence can feel awkward. The stillness can feel threatening, because in that space, all the stuff we've been avoiding begins to rise. The doubts, the fears, the unresolved emotions. But that's exactly the point. You can't heal what you avoid. You can't know yourself if you're constantly distracting yourself. The discomfort isn't a sign that something is wrong. It's a sign that something important is trying to get your attention. I once mentored a young leader named Adam. He was bright, motivated, always on the move. But he struggled with clarity. Every decision felt heavy, every setback overwhelming. I asked him, when's the last time you were still? No phone, no music, just you. He looked at me confused. He couldn't remember. So I challenged him to take just 20 minutes every morning to sit in silence. Not meditate, not journal. Just sit. The first week was hard. He said he felt anxious, bored, even angry. But by week 3, something shifted. He started seeing patterns in his thinking. He noticed when fear was guiding his choices. He felt more grounded. That 20 minutes became his anchor. He told me later, "That's where I found myself again." Solitude helps you realign. It reminds you that your worth isn't in your output. It reconnects you to your intuition, your wisdom, your purpose. It creates the space where insights emerge and breakthroughs happen. You don't need hours in the mountains. Sometimes 15 minutes in your car, on your balcony, or in a quiet room is enough to reset everything. The key is that it must be intentional. Not forced, not accidental, but chosen. It's a declaration to yourself that you matter enough to listen to. So here's your challenge. This week, schedule a block of intentional solitude. Just you. No distractions. No to-do list. Let your mind wander. Let your emotions rise. Observe without judgment. If it helps, walk in nature, sit in a park, or watch the sunrise. The goal is not to accomplish anything. The goal is simply to be. To reconnect with the person beneath the roles, beneath the expectations, beneath the noise. Because here's the truth, the world will never stop asking for your attention. There will always be more to do, more to prove, more to chase. But if you don't step away, you'll lose yourself in the chase. And the cost of that is far too high. The most powerful thing you can do is pause, get quiet, go inward. Because the answers you're searching for aren't out there. They're inside you, waiting to be heard, waiting for space, waiting for you to remember who you truly are. And that remembrance only begins in solitude. Every great life is built on purpose, and that purpose begins with a clear personal mission. Without a mission, life becomes reactive instead of intentional. You wake up every day responding to demands, checking off boxes, and chasing goals that may or may not mean anything to you. A mission gives your life direction. It answers the deeper question, why am I here? What difference do I want to make? It's not just a motivational idea. It's a foundational principle. When you have a mission, you stop drifting and start designing. You stop performing and start leading. You move from surviving to contributing. And that shift changes everything. I met a man named Robert who had spent over 25 years in the corporate world. He was successful by every external measure, high income, leadership role, respect in the industry. But something inside him felt unfulfilled. He told me, "I'm good at my job, but I don't feel like I'm making any real impact." So I asked him, "What would you do if you didn't need to worry about money or status?" He paused and with surprising clarity said, "I'd mentor young men who didn't have fathers." That sentence hit him like a wave. For the first time in decades, he had given voice to what truly mattered to him. That one insight became the seed of his mission. He didn't quit his job overnight, but he began mentoring, volunteering, and eventually started a small program for at-risk youth. His eyes lit up. His energy changed. He finally felt like his life was aligned with his heart. This is what a personal mission does. It reconnects you with meaning. It anchors you in chaos. It provides clarity when decisions are difficult and courage when the path gets hard. Because once you know why you're here, you stop being shaken by every storm. You stop being pulled in 100 directions. You can say no to distractions because you've already said yes to something greater. But most people never write a mission statement. They assume mission is something reserved for companies, nonprofits, or religious organizations. They forget that their own life is the most important organization they will ever lead. And like any successful organization, it needs a mission that's clear, compelling, and deeply personal. A mission is not a vague desire like, "I want to be happy," or "I want to be successful." Those are outcomes. A mission is a commitment. It's a conscious choice to stand for something, to serve someone, to live on purpose. Writing your personal mission doesn't have to be complicated. You start by asking powerful questions. What makes me feel most alive? What injustices break my heart? What kind of legacy do I want to leave behind? What do I want the people closest to me to remember me for? As you reflect on these questions, patterns will start to emerge. You'll notice that certain themes keep coming back. Growth, compassion, creativity, service, leadership, faith. These themes are the raw materials of your mission. One young woman I coached had a passion for helping others feel confident. She had overcome bullying and insecurity, and now wanted to help others do the same. Her mission became to inspire and empower individuals to believe in their worth and express their true selves boldly. That mission didn't just sit on a piece of paper. It shaped her career choices, how she showed up in relationships, even how she used social media. It became a guiding light in her life. And that's what your mission should be. A light. Something you can look at every morning and be reminded of who you are and what you're here to do. Because the world will try to define you. It will try to label you based on your job title, your achievements, or your failures. But when you have a mission, you rise above all of that. You define yourself not by what you do, but by why you do it. So here's your invitation. Take time this week, uninterrupted, intentional time, and write your personal mission statement. Don't worry about it being perfect. Just make it real. Let it be an honest reflection of your values, your passion, and your desired impact. And once it's written, don't hide it. Read it every day. Let it guide your decisions, your goals, and your interactions. Revisit it regularly as you grow. Your mission can evolve, but its essence will remain. It will always be your true north. Because when you live from your mission, you don't just build a life, you build a legacy. You don't just exist, you ignite. And in doing so, you become the kind of person the world doesn't forget. Not because you were the loudest or the most accomplished, but because you lived with clarity, intention, and purpose. That is the power of a personal mission. And that is the path to a life of deep, authentic fulfillment. The final step in the journey of self-discovery is growth through service. It's easy to think of self-discovery as a solitary path, a deeply personal pursuit of inner understanding. And it is. But the journey isn't complete until what you've discovered about yourself begins to impact others. True fulfillment doesn't come from self-absorption. It comes from contribution. The more you understand who you are, the more capable you become of lifting others. Service isn't just an action. It's a way of life. It's the outward expression of an inward transformation. You don't discover yourself fully until you begin to give yourself away in meaningful ways. I once met a woman named Evelyn who had gone through years of personal struggle. Divorce, health battles, financial stress. She spent several years focused on healing, self-reflection, and rebuilding her life. But she told me that her deepest joy didn't come when she finally figured herself out. It came when she started volunteering at a shelter for women going through similar pain. She said, "Something clicked when I began helping others. My past didn't feel like a burden anymore. It became a bridge." That's the transformative power of service. It takes your wounds and turns them into wisdom. It turns pain into purpose. It reminds you that your life isn't just about you. It's about what flows through you into the lives of others. When we grow only for ourselves, we grow in isolation. Our strengths remain untested. Our talents remain underutilized. But when we grow for the sake of others, something awakens in us. We begin to lead, to nurture, to inspire. And in doing so, we grow even more. Growth through service is exponential. It multiplies your character, your resilience, and your influence. Think about the people who've had the greatest impact on your life. Were they the most famous? The most wealthy? Probably not. They were likely the ones who showed up for you, who believed in you, who gave you time, wisdom, or encouragement when you needed it most. Their greatness wasn't in their accomplishments. It was in their service. I remember working with a young professional named Malik who was deeply focused on career success. He was smart, ambitious, and driven. But he felt disconnected, even lonely, despite climbing the ladder. I challenged him to find a way to serve outside of work. He began mentoring college students who were the first in their family to attend university. Within a few months, he told me, "I feel alive in a way I haven't in years. I look forward to our meetings more than anything else I do." And interestingly, His professional life also began to improve. Better relationships, more clarity, and renewed motivation. When we serve, we not only give, we receive. Our sense of purpose deepens. Our identity strengthens. Our joy expands. Service isn't about grand gestures. It's about consistent intention. You don't have to start a nonprofit or travel the world. You can serve by listening deeply to someone who feels unheard. You can serve by encouraging someone who's discouraged. You can serve by sharing your story with someone who's in the dark place you once were in. Every moment of kindness, every act of compassion, every bit of help you give without expecting anything in return. Those are seeds of transformation. And they don't just transform others. They transform you. Growth through service also breaks the cycle of self-doubt. When you're focused only on yourself, your inner critic gets louder. You worry if you're good enough, smart enough, ready enough. But when you're serving, the focus shifts. It's not about you anymore. It's about what someone else needs. And in that shift, fear loses its grip. You stop overthinking and start contributing. That's when you discover courage you didn't know you had. That's when you find strength in vulnerability and joy in generosity. That's when self-discovery becomes self-actualization. So I challenge you today to ask a powerful question. How can I use what I've learned to lift someone else? Maybe it's a neighbor, a colleague, a stranger, or a community. Don't wait until you're ready. Don't wait until your life is perfect. Start where you are with what you have and serve in whatever way you can. Because the world doesn't need more people who are perfect. It needs more people who are willing. Willing to care. Willing to help. Willing to give. And here's the beauty of it all. When you serve, you become the best version of yourself. Not the most polished, but the most powerful. Not the most celebrated, but the most significant. The journey of self-discovery doesn't end when you find yourself. It truly begins when you give yourself. In your service, your purpose shines. In your impact, your identity grows stronger. And in your love for others, you finally become everything you were created to be. Thank you, guys.